When you multiply fractions, you need to know that you don't need to have a common denominator. Okay? You don't need to have a common denominator to multiply or divide, only when you add or subtract. And that makes it really nice, because when it comes to multiplying fractions, you just have 3 steps. Number 1 is multiply your numerators. So what you want to do is look at your 2 numerators, 1 and 4, and multiply them. 1 times 4 is 4. Your next step is to multiply your denominators. So you're going to do the same thing, but with your denominators. So here we've got 2 times 5, which is 10. And then last but not least, your bottom step, your last step, is to simplify. If I have 4/10, 4/10 can be simplified. Both my numerator and my denominator can be divided by 2, and that will give me an answer of 2/5. And that's all there is to multiplying fractions. Multiply your numerators, multiply your denominators, and simplify. Remember, if you're talking about word problems, if you see the word of means to multiply. So what is 1/2 of 4/5? What that really means is you're going to do 1/2 times 4/5. Okay? All right, let's do a couple other problems. So here I have 2/3 times 3/4. So again, remember, step 1, multiply your numerators. 2 times 3 is 6. Step 2, multiply your denominators. 3 times 4. 3 times 4 is 12. So now I have a fraction, 6/12. My last step is to simplify. Numerator and denominator can both be divided by 6, which will leave me an answer of 1/2. Now, sometimes you may see a situation like this where you have a whole number. It's a fraction times a whole number. Any whole number can be written as a fraction, and the way you write it as a fraction is you give it a denominator of 1. Okay? So that's how we turn a whole number into a fraction. Once we have 2 fractions, we just follow our rules. Multiply your numerators. 2 times 4 is 8. Multiply your denominators. 5 times 1 is 5. So I have 8/5. Now that looks like it's in simplest form, but remember, this is an improper fraction. Improper fractions have to be changed to mixed numbers in order for you to be finished. So our real answer is 1 3/5. Now, you know when you multiply numbers that sometimes your answers can get really big. So there's another step that we can add into these problems that'll help us make the problems easier later on, and that is simplifying. It's possible to simplify your fractions before you multiply. And when you simplify a fraction, the only thing you need to remember is you have to have a common factor in a numerator and a denominator. So if I look at this, the first thing I see right here, 6/9, that fraction can be simplified. Okay, I know that 6 and 9 have a common factor of 3. So if I take 6 and divide it by 3, I'm going to get 2. And if I take 9 and divide it by 3, I'm going to get 3. So I really have 2/3. And you know that, because if I gave you this fraction and I said simplify it, this is what you would do. And you would come up with 2/3. So instead of doing it like this, we can do it right in the middle of our problem. Now the other nice thing about simplifying before you multiply is you can simplify not only the fractions you have, but you can simplify diagonally. Any numerator with any denominator. So for example, this 3 as a numerator and this 3 as a denominator, I can simplify because they both have a common factor. I can divide this factor by 3. Oops. If I do 3 divided by 3, I get 1. And I can divide this by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Now, I said you can divide and simplify diagonally. That means I can go this way too. This 4 and this 2 also have common factors. Both of these numbers can be divided by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So now that I have everything simplified, all I need to do is multiply it. I'm going to multiply the same way. Numerator times numerator, 1 times 1 is 1, and denominator times denominator, 2 times 1 is 2. So the simplified answer to this problem is 1/2. Now, you might have to change it into a mixed number if you get an improper fraction, but in this case, 1/2 is fine. Now, let me just prove to you that this works. Okay, let's pretend I didn't simplify anything. Let's just multiply this. Who can tell me? 3 times 6. 3 times 6 is 18. 4 times 9, right here, is 36. 18 over 36, both of these have a common factor of 18. If I divide 18 by 18, I get 1. If I divide 36 by 18, I get 2. So you can see that we're going to end up with the same answer whether we simplify beforehand or after. It's just that it makes it easier on us if we simplify beforehand because our numbers don't get as big. All right, 2 more problems. Looking at this one, what can we simplify? Remember, it has to be a numerator with a denominator. If I look at this fraction, I can't simplify. If I look at this fraction, I can't simplify. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look diagonally. What about these 2 things? I notice that 9 and 3 both have a common factor. They can both be divided by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Now, I'm going to look this way, diagonally. I'm going to look at 4 and 10. And I know that 4 and 10 both have a common factor. Both of those things can be divided by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And when I multiply now, 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 5 is 15. So 2/15 is the answer to my problem. Now, last but not least, what do we do if we have a whole number? Well, first things first, we have to take that whole number and write it as a fraction. Remember, the way we write it as a fraction is we put it over 1. Now we want to look for common factors. This fraction can't be simplified. This fraction can't be simplified. If I go diagonally, 2 and 1 can't be simplified. But I know that 3 and 9 can. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And now I'm ready to multiply. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 1 is 1. 6 over 1 simplifies to just the whole number 6. And that's the answer to our problem.